Hey there, my name is adeola.kjv, and today with me,
It's Yomina Kobero.
yes, like I mentioned, we're doing a series of performance management, and we're talking both on behalf of the organization and behalf of the employee and the person. I think that it's important that we look at we're able to balance it out really, so that the employee gets the benefits and the support that they need, but the organization also does, because at the end of the day, you're coming to work for a reason and you're getting paid for a reason. So really, you should deliver, right? However, there are certain parameters that will help you deliver more and perform more, and there's some parameters that won't really. So the first thing we talked about in this series was goal setting and why it's important for both organization and person to have their goals set up. And then we talked about effective communication and how it's important to communicate to one another individually, but also together, and possibly have an open day where everybody is able to share their opinions with no judgment and no repercussions, so that you don't lose your stuff forever.
Yeah.
Okay, and so today we're talking about
The home front.
yes.
We're talking about the home front and how what happens at home affects what happens in the office and if it should.
You know, I hear this saying, what happens at home stays at home, right? But to be honest, it can't. We're very emotional. Some people are logical, yes, and are able to cut off their emotions or compartmentalize. But some people aren't. And I think majorly a lot of people aren't, because we're feeling beings. And so if at home we're going through certain challenges, either with our spouses or with our parents or with our children, or even internally as a woman, you have hormonal times, you have your period, you get pregnant, those are things that happen to you as a woman naturally, whether you like it or not. How does that then affect how we bring our persons to work and perform better? I think it has a huge role to play. And I'm saying huge because of the magnanimity. There's a word like that of it. But if you're unhappy, you're not going to be able to perform properly. And I think I know that the organizations will say they're not their fathers or their mothers, they're paying them for a job and that job must be done. However, if my home front is not covered, there's no way I can deliver to your standard or even to my standard.
Exactly.
And what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And a lot of organizations usually would not want to get so involved, in what is going on in the home front of their staff. And I don't think that's what we are saying. I don't think we are saying, be so involved that
And don't mind your business.
Exactly. So, but I mean, if there are really pressing issues,
Like what? Give us examples.
so if for example a married woman or a married man in your employ is having challenges with their spouse, that's a pressing issue, and it's certainly an issue that would always weigh on the mind of the person, whether man or woman, and would affect their concentration in the office, affect them being able to perform. And I guess, okay, maybe an ND watching this might ask, so what exactly am I supposed to do in that situation?
Yes.
And I think what could be done is to first and foremost even ask how they are doing.
Yeah.
Especially if you know that the situation is there, is to ask how they are doing and ask how you could be of help. I mean,
Sorry to cut you, but I want to say something. And you may say, how am I meant to know when to ask? Because if you don't know, if they don't tell you, you don't know.
You don't
But a lot of times you can see it written on people's faces.
yes.
So they come in looking forlorn, come in looking tired, come in looking sad, and you see them absent-minded. So you're talking to them, but they're not listening, and you see that they're not present.
Yes.
Those are then they're always falling sick. Those are parameters that you can use to figure out that there's something going on.
Yeah,
You can keep
yeah,
going.
exactly. And it's when we actually find out these things, if we know exactly what the issue is. So if, for example, you've had an employee who who is always good at what they do, who is always lively in the office, who comes to the office early. You know, the person is always up and doing. His work is always on point. And then all of a sudden, it begins to dip. You know, I think that's like a red flag.
Pointer.
It's a pointer to say, okay, you know. And a lot of this is usually on the desk of the HR practitioners within the organization.
Yeah.
To see their employees and see the dip, notice the change, notice the switch in their performance, notice the switch in their attitude at work, and to call them in and say, what's going on? You know, and talk with them. And you might not be able to give counsel, but you might be able to refer. You might be able to say, okay, maybe you need to talk to somebody. You might be able to maybe give them a day off or 2 days off, you know, just to sort of, you know, the situation isn't always so bad. And sometimes when these little interventions are made, it might prevent a bigger problem from happening. So
I think that's really interesting, you know. Sometimes I see how people, you know, they come into the office. In my office, I'm the office shrink, by the way. And people come in and come straight to meet me, or I go, because I have a thing of going around everybody and saying hello to everybody when I get into the office. And when I see something is off, I would ask, how are you doing? Are you okay? Did you sleep well? You know, did you have a good night rest? Because sleeping well and having a good night rest are two different things. Exactly. You know, so I say, did you have a good night rest? Well, you know, some people say I had a headache. What were you thinking about? You know, why do you think you had a headache? What do you think you can do tonight to help you? You know, so it's not just to ask the questions, but maybe prefer a solution. And then if I see it happening over and over and over again, I then say, okay, you know, come, let's sit down and talk. And so my colleagues and my staff feel very comfortable calling me and telling me things, because they know that by the time they leave me, they will leave me with something tangible and something that they can learn from me, and a lighter heart. So I think that, you know, bosses can do that also. It shouldn't just be all about business as usual. If you go around looking at people and you see somebody with a face looking sad or something, I think calling the person to say, hi, are you okay? Come into my office. Let's sit down and talk. Well, you know, and just have that one-on-one relationship. But also, you also have to be okay to want to do it for someone else, right? So maybe I don't really blame the bosses or the managers or the management or HR. Because what if HR also is going through her own divorce? You know, let's try to be fair. You know, so I think it's more of, first of all, finding yourself and finding your peace. Then it's easy to now identify, or maybe it's easy for me to identify it because I'm always naturally in a good place, and I want to always put people into that space. The truth, some people don't want to leave the ruts that they're in. I've realized that. Absolutely. So even HR, the organizations can give all the interventions in the world, but they are benefiting from that place of pain. So they're not ready to come out of that place. I just had to take it there. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, we're trying to be as humane as possible on both ends, so that one side is not, you know, the pendulum is isn't tilted to one side, and there's fairness across board. But I think generally, if we have more compassion for one another and empathy for one another, it won't be, hey, that's her business. If she didn't tell me, then I don't care. I think asking questions, I mean, if I ask you a couple of times and you don't say anything, I also respect the fact that you don't want to share, and I'm okay with it. But if there's any way I can help, you know, I offer my services or offer myself to people. Another thing I think also is appraising people, appraisal. You know, praising people for the work that they're doing. I know that you have paid them for something, but do you tell them well done for what they're doing? You know, do you tap them on the back and say, go on, champ, you're doing a great job? You know, do we, because that gives a burst of excitement. And it also, whatever gets celebrated gets repeated. So how do we also, you know, see people for even the littlest things that they do and say thank you for it or praise them for it? And then you'll be able to, you know, put it like this morning, I walked into the office, I sat down and I saw a gentleman, you know, nice tan jacket, white shirt, and, you know, and it really complimented him. So I looked at him and I said, "You look so good today. The colors that you're wearing pops on you. You know, it brings you out. You are lit up. You look alive." And he looked at me and he said, "Madam, you just made my day." You know, and just the smile, he was like, "Really?" As though, when last did anybody tell him you looked good? You know, and the way I said it, he knew it was genuine from my heart. Because, I mean, I didn't have to say anything, you know. And so he looked at me and he said, "Thank you very much, you made my day." And that also kind of made my own day, you know, just for that little gesture. And I'm not sure that it's only for me. I think everybody has the capacity to see things and appreciate people openly. I mean, I don't know if you...
Yes, you know, and it's interesting you talk about the boss, you know, employee dynamics in terms of being able to, you know, reach out to your employees and even talk to them and say hi. And I've worked in an organization before where I always had to, you know, if you ask the boss, if you the employee went to ask the boss, "So how are you doing today? How did you have a restful night?" They wouldn't answer you.
Right.
You know, it was as though you were encroaching. You
Right.
were, you know, and like, this is the office, right? You're asking me,
Taking advantage
Yeah,
of
so-
the relationship, I
Exactly.
guess.
So sometimes, if it's not coming from the boss, it's difficult to even reciprocate it, you know, from the other side.
Well, I say keep doing it because I don't live in a box. One day he will answer you. One day she will answer you because she sees that you'll be consistent with it. Because consistency is what matters. If you see I do it every day, one day you will say, "Today I'm actually fine," and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just keep at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I hope we've been able to help you today with how both sides can benefit and how praise also does a huge job in making people perform better. Once again, my name is Adeola,
And I'm Yomi.
and have a wonderful day, guys.